Hi, I'm Dr. Don Boomgaarden, President of St. Joseph's College, and I'd like to welcome you to St. Joseph's College, Living Our Mission. Thank you for joining us. In this program, we will be discussing the liberal arts and career preparation while navigating the challenges that COVID-19 has presented us with. Founded in 1916, St. Joseph's College is deeply rooted in the liberal arts, educating students in the arts and sciences, as well as more than 50 majors, special course offerings and certificates, affiliated and pre-professional programs. I believe that our innate ability to foster a love of learning while teaching our students to apply what they know towards resolving practical problems truly sets our graduates apart. To speak more about this is Dr. David Sapala Holtzman, Professor of Mathematics and Computer Science, and Dr. Eileen White-John, Executive Dean of SJC Long Island, Professor of Business and Chair of the Department of Business Administration and Marketing. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
What was not in my introduction is that you both work on different campuses. Many people don't know that St. Joseph's College is actually spread across a rather large geographic area. So we have a large campus in Brooklyn. It's our founding campus. Going all the way back to 1916, and then we have our Suffolk County campus here in Patchogue, New York. Both campuses offer very, very similar programs. The students and faculty in some cases share courses, but there are some significant differences and some interesting interrelationships there. Both campuses, though, are founded in the tradition of the Sisters of St. Joseph as they envisioned the college as being a school which provided a strong liberal arts foundation, but also prepared students for the practical application of that. David, you've been at St. Joseph's for quite a while.
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
And your commitment to the school and your commitment to the liberal arts in the context of that practicality, I think, is really remarkable. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and about the teaching that you've done here and the work that you've done here and how it relates to your dedication to the liberal arts.
Well, as I said, I've been here now 40 years. Well, come January, 40 years, not quite. You don't stay at a place for 40 years if you don't like it, so that's a pretty good endorsement right there. I fell in love with mathematics as an undergraduate. I fell in love with academia as an undergraduate, and I said, these are my people, I want to live here. And so I got my degree from Oxford University in England. I lived there for 5 years. I then moved to the Netherlands for 5 years, where I had a postdoc in the Netherlands, and then I came here in '81. And I particularly enjoyed St. Joseph's because exactly of what you've described. I felt it was a place in which I could make a difference. I didn't feel like I was a small cog in a huge machine, and I felt that I could basically impart my view of the liberal arts and the beauty of mathematics as part of that to my students. And I could do that in a fairly intimate way because it was a small, intimate environment.
It is surprising in some cases today to have to say this, but when we talk about the liberal arts, we're talking about the artes liberales, which are the arts that liberate us, the things which liberate us, that set us free. And so it's not about a particular political viewpoint,
right,
but it's about the idea that knowledge is something that will allow you to gain a perspective on the world and to set you free. It will give you that opportunity to weather even challenging times like this. Now, in your many years, you've taught a great variety of students in Brooklyn. Tell us a little bit about that experience for you, because I'm sure you weren't just teaching mathematics and computer science majors.
Right. Oh, no, not at all. I really enjoyed the diversity of the student body that I've had. And I've had spectacular students from all over the world, all over the world. And I've been greatly impressed with them. I'm impressed with their industry and their quest for knowledge. And I particularly enjoy ACES, because ACES provides us a platform, essentially, for these international students. And I have so many international students in my classroom that I've just found that wonderful. I actually published a paper with a student from Mexico, and that was a fantastic experience.
So the ACES program at St. Joseph's College is a special program that we have for students that are not native English speakers, that come to us from all over the world. I've taught them myself in my classes. I regularly teach a class on American roots music, and I've had students as you from Nepal, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Africa, Nigeria, for example. And those students have enriched the classroom and also given me a great deal of knowledge through working with them. And so that special program that we have, at any given time, there's upwards to 100 students in that program, an important part of our student life in Brooklyn. Now, Eileen, you're coming at this from a kind of different direction because your career has been in business. How did you come to become a professor at St. Joseph's? And then, of course, somebody talked you into becoming the dean of the college here. So tell me a little bit about all of that.
The latter or the former? Yes, I have only been here for 22 years.
Okay.
And because it was a second career for me. I did go into business, but my original degree was in biology. So I am rooted in the liberal arts, and then economics was my double major, and I went on for an MBA in NYU, and I went into the corporate world for several years before I started my PhD program. And I think that perspective lets me even more strongly defend the liberal arts and their role for people in business or any career that you prep. And that's really, it was the mission of this school that first attracted me to it. The fact that we're rooted in the liberal arts tradition, but we are dedicated to career preparation. There's no war between those two things. They work very well together to prepare them. So I came to St. Joe's after, at a later point in my life, after finishing my dissertation and coming in with a variety of experiences that have helped to move conversations with our student on.
This is for a question for both of you, really, because sometimes I'm asked by parents, well, you know, should my student be spending all this time on this core curriculum? Shouldn't they just be focusing on their professional area? Isn't this taking them away from what they should be learning if they want to, for example, to become an IT specialist? How do you respond to that?
Oh, I think it's crucial that they take the core because it's broadening. If you are going to simply focus on a vocation, you are limiting yourself. And you're also not allowing for the flexibility that the future may bring. There are many things that are going to come down the pike which we don't even know about today. And you need to be prepared for that. And you can't know how to prepare for that except to have a broad education.
Technical skills are great, and teaching them the finance and programming and things that they need are wonderful and may help them with their first job, but I agree completely. It is your full education that helps you put things into cultural contexts and helps you put things into, it increases your flexibility and adaptability and increases the pathways in your brain. I took Latin in high school. I still use, I don't remember most of the vocabulary. I don't know how to decline verbs, or is that what you do with them? But I do know that it changed pathways in my brain with how I think about things and how I analyze things. And it helped me learn how to computer program, and it helped me with many other things. And I tell this to students, you may think that an English literature class is something that you're never going to use, but it's teaching you how to think, how to critically assess and analyze things. When you do a thesis paper in an English literature class, maybe you'll never remember the plot of Jane Austen, but you'll remember how you got to the conclusions. And it helps to train you in a way to think that's going to help you with everything you do in life.
Yes, I think that I've heard it said, and I think it's probably true, that we're really preparing students for career paths that don't even exist yet.
That's correct.
That there's so many new positions, new technologies that are developed constantly, that in many ways a really purely professional education is probably going to be a disadvantage because your job may not exist in 5 to 10 years. So then what will you do? So the ability to be flexible and to use the skills of assembling information, solving problem, breaking things down is really what's going to be helpful to you.
And we hear this from employers. When I was the business department chair, we would survey employers, and they would say to us, great, they know a little finance, they know how to manage, good, I want them to know those things, but can they speak? Can they write? Can they reason? Can they analyze? Can they put these things together? And I say, yes, our students can. And when we send them out on internships, that's the feedback that we get back.
David, in your field, there are many opportunities for interdisciplinarity. So for example, as you're teaching students from those other fields that are in your classes, how do those other fields enter into your classes and become a part of your conversation with them?
Well, mathematics is essentially applicable across the board. There's almost no area in which it isn't. Obviously, in the sciences, there's no dispute there. But the kind of analytic thought that mathematics engenders is applicable in virtually any field. I would agree with Eileen on that. And you don't know in advance how that connection is going to happen. It's going to happen serendipitously. And when it does, you're going to say, oh, I didn't know I needed to know that, but isn't that a wonderful thing that I do? And so that's what happens when I speak with students who are in other majors, and we find a connection between analytic thought in my realm and in their realm.
And that concept can be very disturbing to young people who would like things to be just very, very straight and presented to them. And so the thought that, you know what, even though I don't know exactly how this is going to help you, but it's going to, that is a tough concept.
Right.
Because that you basically are asking them to trust you.
Right.
And I think building that sense of trust sometimes is part of our job as well. But I do believe that for students to understand that when they are studying Jane Austen, when they are studying higher mathematics, even if those are not going to be their major areas of focus, that is going to be a tremendous tool. I tell them this all the time. It is for me as a musician, because the ability to sit for long periods of time alone and break things down, which is basically what you do when you practice a piano work, is extremely valuable to me. So whether I'm sitting in front of a score of Franz Liszt or a spreadsheet, it's the same thing to me. I'm looking at all the different variations and permutations of that, and I'm also thinking about, gee, could I do this upside down? Could I do it backward? Could I do it in a different rhythm? All of those things are applicable to whatever I'm doing.
Right.
And frequently, people are surprised. You know, they'll say, well, gee, I mean, you're a musician, how could you become a president? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I be? I mean, those things are not, they can go together. So I think that part of our job as professors, whether we're in business, whether we're in mathematics, is to talk about those connections that are so much more important in the long run than the immediate knowledge that we're giving them. So there's the immediate knowledge, but there's the long-term knowledge. Well, we have to take a quick break, but still to come, more about the liberal arts here at St. Joseph's College. Welcome back to St. Joseph's College, Living Our Mission. We were discussing the liberal arts here at St. Joseph's College, and I'm chatting here with Eileen and David about the current state of things and maybe the future of things in the liberal arts and for our college. This has been a time of great challenge to us. Back in March, we made the decision to close the campuses for a short period of time. I remember making the decision and thinking maybe 2 or 3 weeks and then we'll be through this, but it turned out not to be 2 or 3 weeks. And so we made the decision to go fully remote in the spring and in the summer, and then this fall we're doing a kind of mixture, 20% on ground, 80% remote or hybrid, and that seems to be working well for us. But that's a very big transition to move from in-class teaching to remote teaching. So I'd like to ask each of you to talk a little bit about your experiences, and of course, Eileen, you can talk about it not only from the vantage point of the professor, but also from the vantage point of the administrator trying to make it happen. But David, let me start with you. What was that like for you?
Well, it was a challenge, to be sure. But I was, in fact, particularly well positioned, actually, because I have, for the longest time, been an extremely heavy user of the educational technology that the college provides us with. In my case, it's Canvas, Smartboard, and Kaltura. Canvas is our learning module management system, and I have populated my Canvas courses with voluminous, extensive lecture notes. Back before the world stopped turning, I used to present those on the board. I used to discuss them with my students, and then I would turn to my Smartboard to give extended explanations, work out additional examples, and answer questions on the fly. Then all of that was recorded on Kaltura, which is our lecture capture system. Everything projected on the screen, everything projected on the Smartboard, and everything that was spoken in the classroom was captured and posted on Canvas. So a student who was absent could get to see what happened there, and a student who was present could get to review what happened there. All of that transitioned wonderfully, semi-wonderfully, to the new world when the pandemic struck. So I could produce my Kaltura from home on my laptop. And so I could present all the material that I was presenting before, and the interaction, of course, was missing, so we had to go to Zoom. And so I had regular Zoom classes that spoke to what I had sent them on Kaltura. And that was working reasonably well. Right now, I have chosen to go hybrid, so I'm 50-50. And that's actually an improvement, obviously, because Zoom is good, but face-to-face is better, or should I say mask-to-mask. And so that actually improves the communication and the give and take.
And Eileen, how about you?
Well, my own personal experience was similar and smooth, mostly because of the nature of what I was teaching, which was more of an independent capstone class for graduate students. So I didn't get the terrible baptism in fire that other people did. It worked well. But I was in the weeds with a lot of people with what they were doing. And some people, the transition was very smooth. Other people had a rocky path. But fortunately, we had a really solid background because our third campus is our online campus. And we already had an infrastructure, many of the items of which you mentioned, was when we had expertise on campus. So even my most backward professors had the assistance that they needed in order to connect with people in real time. And I think that was the surprise of the semester, is that even when you're remote, you can connect. And you can connect in real time or in other ways. And we have just been on this learning curve that just keeps moving up and up. But I think we're getting better and better at it. And people who I never a year ago, and the ironic thing is about 2 weeks before we closed, I reminded everybody, if we ever have a snow day, make sure you at least have some campus classes that you can turn to. And we found out who listened to me and who didn't a few weeks later. But they've learned a lot, and a lot of them are mastering it.
My experiences were informed a lot by the fact I was in New Orleans shortly after Katrina at Loyola University New Orleans, where after Katrina, they realized that we must be prepared in the future. And so all faculty were required to be able to shift their course online, whether there was an emergency or not. And so the school had a very special focus on that, and I think that was helpful for me. I was the dean at the time, and I was able to see how that was all put in place. When I came here, of course, we had already, as you said, 27 fully online programs and a large online division, which gave us the technical expertise and the personnel to train the faculty who hadn't done it. And of course, I put my own course, I'm teaching my course this semester remotely. And I think for our viewers, I think it's important to understand that a remote course, for example, the one I'm teaching is not a traditional online course, because I'm meeting with the students synchronously. I'm meeting with them every week at the regular time. We meet on our Zoom screen, and there are interactions, conversations that are going on. So the student is not just simply sitting in front of a pre-recorded tape, but there's actually a give and take going on in the classroom, albeit rather different. But what I've noticed already in my class is, first of all, that the students are delighted to be connecting. They're thrilled to have that opportunity to learn after in some cases, being isolated for months. And so I realized that part of my job this semester as a teacher is not only to instruct them, but also to be a type of counselor to them, and also someone that is going to help them deal with this crisis. And I think it's through the liberal arts that we develop those tools. Have you had that experience, David?
I have, actually. I knew that the students were sort of reaching out to me because they were in isolation and they needed reassurance. And Zoom, of course, is not the completely optimal way to do that. So we had to find ways of increasing that connection. Sometimes I would actually use Google Meet as opposed to Zoom, because I found it to be slightly more personal, and I could make better eye contact with the students, which I think is crucial. And so, yeah, I would agree with you. I have found precisely that.
Yeah. And Eileen, what about you?
I think that they definitely were aided by their liberal arts background in that they were more flexible. Certainly the faculty, but the flexibility and the adaptability really helped people adjust to a change. And I think we learned a lot as a college, because we were reluctant to use too much technology because we consider ourselves a very personal college in which we have connections with the students, and it was hard for us to envision those connections in any way other than in person. And I think we've learned a lot from this to know that we can make those connections and make them work, even with limited in person.
Yes, the intersection of what we do as a liberal arts college and technology would have been seen before this crisis as, a lot of people see those are antithetical. Those things shouldn't go together. In fact, we should avoid them. And I think that, if anything, this crisis has kind of helped many to realize that, no, those two things can actually go together.
You can actually humanize them.
You can use the new media and have a meaningful liberal arts connection. Now, it does force us to rethink what we're doing. So again, I've had to rethink my course in many ways. And I think actually it's a better course for this. I mean, I had to go back and rethink every single lecture as I turned them into a remote module. Have you had that experience as well?
Well, I'm anticipating that experience specifically with one course that I don't do like any of the others, and that's going to be the proofs course that I give. We have a course in proofs, and what I used to do in that was put students in groups and have them work on a problem, and I would walk around the room and come help them. Of course, that's not going to work in a remote setting, and so I was talking to my colleagues about that, and I've been exploring breakout rooms in Zoom where I could basically replicate that sort of thing, and also using chat on Zoom, which is also a handy thing. So I'm looking at what is available to me in the new technology and how I can sort of modulate how I used to do things and take advantage of these new options.
It's a new modality of learning, and I think shifting into a new modality is always good for us, even if it's temporary, because it forces us to re-examine what we're doing. Again, as a musician, I would equate it to, if you're practicing a difficult passage and playing it in a different key is actually very instructive, and playing it on a different instrument is instructive. And so even if we don't stick with these types of technical approaches in every single case, the experience of having gone through it, I think is valuable. And it's also a teachable moment for us because it humanizes us to our students, doesn't it? That we're struggling just
That's
like
right.
they are.
We're all going to make mistakes.
When you're dealing with your students in business and management, is there resistance from them towards the liberal arts ideal? I'm just curious about what that's like.
In the beginning, I think it's true that undergraduates in the beginning think, just give me especially if they've chosen to be a business major, a very functional major to get a job. What do I need all that stuff for? And they think of college as just putting together a string of courses, and to force them to understand that they need to integrate these courses, that your history course can feed your human resource course, that your other courses can do that, it takes time. And I think that in that major there might be a little more resistance in the beginning, but I think they get it after a while. And in the graduate programs, we're actually, even though they don't take liberal arts electives, they are learning soft skills, which are another product of the liberal arts. So we are, in a way, interweaving those things. And I think the older students who are in the real world do get it a little more, and they appreciate that we have that we're not just giving them the technical information that they need.
But certainly St. Joseph's College should be a place where we don't create silos for the students. And I think that, and I'm thrilled to see that in both of your work, that in your teaching, you're trying to interrelate what you're doing to so many different disciplines. And the tendency in our modern age is to try to create silos and very, very narrow definitions of everything. And that kind of black and white thinking, on and off thinking, of course, is antithetical to what we do as a liberal arts institution. But again, that is an area of discomfort for some, particularly younger minds that prefer to have everything just given to them in a straight form. At least they appear to be. Well, I think that the current situation for us, I think we're doing well with it. David, if you were to look out at the landscape of the future for the liberal arts, what would you say the future of the liberal arts college looks like at this point?
I think the future is actually quite good, although you hear bleak predictions, but I don't agree with those. I think the future is very good for it because I think people are going to come to recognize and realize exactly what it is that we're saying here today. I think that those attempts to make things siloed and so specific that they're going to recognize the downside of that. And so when they're going to prefer training as opposed to education, they're going to recognize that that is not going to be applicable and transferable, whereas education will be infinitely transferable. And so I think people will realize that and then want to keep the liberal arts alive and well.
Well, I agree with you. And on that very, very optimistic note, I want to thank both of you for being with me today. I'd also thank all of you at home for watching St. Joseph's College Living Our Mission. At St. Joseph's, we feel that the timeless knowledge of a liberal arts foundation prepares students for success in whatever major they decide to study and whatever path they choose to walk in. We hope to see you again and see you soon. Be safe and stay healthy.